Hello, good afternoon, and God bless you. Welcome back to the, the third episode on the introduction to data processing in library and information science. I remain Dr. Wada Ibrahim, and so far so good. Talk about the data input on coding sheet, where I define that as the manual way of creating codes for your data. And it's as simple as ABC. If you don't have computer, what do? You take your paper and take your pencil or pen. You begin to write down your variables that are there in your questionnaire or in your any instrument for data collection. You begin to code them. Take for example, this might be a blank white plain paper, and you take it and you just give it a label, write label, maybe coding guide. That's it. And then you begin to write down maybe mail, maybe in your own case. In any case, it depends on the number you choose. Male represent two represent male, and then female represent or one represent male. As simple as that. Make sure you write down the value for the variable, and then you note what you are talking about. Here we are talking about gender, right? Good. And so we have number one, number two, and then you go back to the next variable. Take for example, educational qualification, right? Under educational qualification, maybe you have PhD, right? Let me write it very well, PhD. And your PhD may be represented with number 4, for example. If you have master, you represent your master with 3, and then first degree, so to say, you represent it with 2, and finally, under certain circumstances, you can even say maybe diploma, you represent it with 1. This is what we call coding guide. You know, when you go into a SPSS or any application you're going to be using for your data analysis, you know what each value represents. Excuse me. And then when you're using computer, it makes it even more easier. And that's what we're talking about. What I meant by coding guides on computer coding sheet. You can use the Excel or you can use a table in Microsoft Word. Take for example, you might decide to use a table like this in Microsoft Word. Make it very easy. So you say serial number, and then you give your serial number to them, and then on the heading here, maybe you say gender. Very simple. And whenever you have your mail, the same thing that you do, I just did at the top, is what you do here. But in this case, you're using computer. I'm using computer to teach you. That's why even when I did this, I use computer. But under certain circumstances, you might not have access to the computer. You might not have access to your phone. All you have access to is paper and pen. And that's exactly what I meant by, or what is meant by data input on coding sheet. That's what you do. On computers, you use computer to do everything. You can even use Excel. Take for example, let me read my Microsoft Excel. This is my Microsoft Excel. You can just put run this one as serial number, or maybe number 1. Sorry, let me just delete this. You say this one is a serial number. Exactly the same thing. It's not different. Here, you say maybe it's your gender. I'm using simple example, and it applies to every other thing. Maybe here is education, and so on and so forth. So when you come here, you know you are typing your male and you represent with 2, and female with 1. Depends on the number you want to assign to. If you decide to give this one maybe your own female, you want to represent it with 9, and your female you represent it with 8, you must remember this. So whenever you go into your system to enter your data or to compute your data, you know that wherever 9 is inputted, you are referring to male, and whenever 8 is computed or inputted, you are referring to female. The same thing goes with the PhD, I mean the educational qualification. So you can use Excel, you can use Microsoft Word table, and that's just that about that. Now, this is the right time for you to see SPSS. Let me just run my SPSS. I've run it before. Here is the plain, clean, clear installed statistical package for social sciences, and it's as simple as ABC. Here you have a variable view, you have your what? You have your data view. In the variable view, this is where you put your name. Remember, at number 1 here, you put your gender. You must not give a space. And number 2, maybe education, ADU, ADUQ. Maybe you know what this means. Maybe number 3, maybe age. And then another thing that is very important you need to do. You don't need to worry about the rest. Make sure you give a proper label. Maybe gender of the librarian. Maybe if librarians are your respondent. If not, the student, fine. Educational qualification. Educational qualification of the librarians. So you know when you run your data, it's going to be showing you titles. The title, the system will automatically apply this. Maybe age. It's an age range of the librarians. It's as simple as that. So another important thing that, because I'm combining so many things here, you see we're talking about SPSS statistical analysis package. This is it. Sorry, this is it. And now the next one is talking about setting up data, the data file. This is exactly what I'm doing now. Typing the gender, the educational qualification, the age range. You are just setting your data up so that when you come to data entry, when you go to data, if you want to do your data entry, it will be easy for you. Computer will understand what you mean by A, what you mean by M, what you mean by R, and so on and so forth. Another important thing in setting up data is assigning of the values to the label. Let me show you something here. Just now we talk about this coding guide. What represents male here is 2. All right. So here under the values, you have to click on something here. I'll be showing you practically. So when you type 2 here, under the label, you put your male, and when you type 1 here under the label, you put your female. This is what we refer to as setting up your data. The same thing goes with educational qualification. A PhD, maybe 4 means PhD. The computer will understand that. When you put 3, the computer will understand as master. All right. When you put 2, the computer will understand as, for example, first degree. And finally, when you put 1, the computer should understand what you mean by that as diploma. And so that is what I call setting up a data file. Make life easy for you. And this is just another simplest thing for you to understand. The reason why this subtopic comes up is that there are some cases where people like using syntax method when they like programming. But I'm not up to that anyway. I'm not doing that. So we're going to be talking about Windows method. This is exactly what I'm doing now. Windows method, it requires a GUI where you click and type and go and you do whatever you want to do, follow all the features and functions. That's all about that. That's what I mean by Windows method. It's as simple as that. Missing data. Take for example, now that we have our gender, we have our educational qualification, we have our age, we turn to data view and we know whenever we type 2, we are referring to male and female. When we type 2 is male, and when we enter 1, we are referring to female. But here comes the problem. As we are entering, maybe the respondent 1 was able to give us as male, respondent 2, respondent 3, 4 were able to indicate their gender as male because 2 represent male when we set up our data. Now we come to respondent 5 and there is nothing there. We can't just assume because we've already left the field. We are back to our offices or to our schooling environment or to where we are doing our coding. So you don't know, you may not exactly know which respondent did not indicate his or her gender. So we leave it blank. Leaving blank, as well as mistakenly typing what you are not supposed to type. Here I'm supposed to type 2 or 1 and mistakenly enter wrong data value, which is 3. And all these wrong entry, they are defined as missing data. Yes. And so the next thing we need to talk about here is the multiple response. This is a situation whereby the respondent is given option to select all that apply. Take for example, let me take you into Microsoft Word and give you a typical example. We have a question that solicits response from the respondent, where the respondent needs to select all smartphone that maybe you can say indicate the smartphone So as I was saying, the next thing to talk about now is the t-test. Okay, I think I was trying to give you an example on the multiple choice. I've done that. The t-test, where we compare means of two groups. The analysis of variance, we compare the means across the 3 or more groups. I don't need to do more explanation. When we raise up a topic and we collect data, different data that match each of these statistical tools, we will now experiment them and see what we can learn from there. There's also post-hoc. The post-hoc analysis comes as an aid, as a help to novel analysis of variance, where analysis of variance can also tell you that differences exist, but it cannot tell you which group has a mean different from the other group. So we are going to be looking at that in detail. On the factorial analysis, this is described by two factors, 2 or more independent factors interact with dependent variable. So we'll also go into that detail and with a typical example. And then we'll talk about correlation, where we look at the strength and direction of a linear relationship between 2 continuous variables. And you say here too we talk about relationship, but here we talk about the effect of the actions of 2 or more independent variables, or as they interact with the dependent variable. Here we look at the strength of the relationship. We also look at the direction of the relationship, and we know a linear relationship is a one-way relationship, and then that is all about that. We'll also be looking at that, where we see the power of -1 and power of -1 and +1. Also see the power of 0, which indicate no relationship, where -1 indicates positive relationship and -1 indicate negative relationship, and then so on and so forth. We'll also look at the linear regression, and then we'll finally look at the multiple regression, and then non-parametric test, which is a chi-square. We are going to be looking at all these things. And then in order for us to exemplify, to provide typical example that will help us understand, I've come up with a topic, and that will be the beginning of the next lecture that I'll be providing. Thank you for listening, and God bless you. what we are going to be doing, and when we are going to be looking at all these analytical tools, we shall be looking at the condition that qualify our data to go for each of these analytical tools. Hit on the notification button, hit on the like button as you watch this YouTube, and share among your friends and colleagues, and ask yourself questions and prepare all necessary questions for our next meeting, when we shall be meeting on WhatsApp to interact actively. Thank you very, very much, and God bless all of us. See you in the next episode of the lecture.